And now the time has come to make an assessment line by line. When the Normandy Chair for Peace was launched, the first line that was immediately ready with our team was the line dedicated to legal indicators for the protection of the environment. So I'm very happy to welcome on stage Mr. Michel PRIEUR, Emeritus Professor. So, you know, this is a great honor to support him. You know, he's one of the greatest professors of environmental law in the world, and he gave us a great heritage, very stimulating work, which is to think about legal indicators, the effectiveness of environmental protection. Michel, you have the floor. Michel, you're welcome.
Merci, Émilie, pour
Thank you very much, Émilie. Thank you for your presentation. So this ceremony is a closing ceremony, but for us it's not a closure time, it's just a step. And all of the research groups that have participated in the past 4 years in the scientific activities of the Normandy Chair for Peace, all of these groups will, of course, continue to work, each in their own field. And I hope that in one way or another, they will continue to meet and to confront all of their research activities that started 4 years ago. So with regards to the legal indicators topic, of course, this is a research that started with the International Center for Comparative Environmental Law in 2017-2018, and this was then integrated in the work of the Normandy Chair for Peace. This was one of the first activity of the chair to gather here in Caen some working groups, transdisciplinary working groups, in order to continue with the research and development on this innovative topic. So I would like to give 5 characteristics of these legal indicators without going too much into the details. So Christophe Bastin will mention more details. But the first characteristic, this is a teamwork, you know, transdiscipline, cross-discipline teamwork, because it associated both legal experts, scientists, and legal experts, as well as a mathematician. So this represents a scientific innovation which really aims at developing a new method in order to assess the public policies related to the environment. The second characteristic, this is an instrument of international scientific diplomacy, which is at the heart of the objectives of the Normandy Chair for Peace, because these legal indicators have the aim of being being useful for the different assessments made of the effectiveness of the application of international law, international environmental law. The fourth characteristic, this is an assessment tool for assessing the progress and also different types of regressions in the application of environmental law. And the fifth point, the fifth characteristic is of these legal indicators. These legal indicators have the aim of becoming an instrument of progress for the knowledge of the different processes, the different complex processes of application of the law, so the effectiveness, application through the way of decomposing, breaking down all of the different steps, administrative and financial steps in the implementation of the law as it was drafted by the states and by the parliaments. So this method of assessment of the effective application of the law that we developed through the environmental law has the aim also in the future to apply to other types of law, such as family law, private law, etc. So a universal goal and in order to assess the effectiveness of the implementation of this law. So, of course, the Normandy Chair for Peace contributed to the development of these legal indicators. And in 2020, with the International Congress of the IUCN, the International Union for the Conservation of Nature, to which Normandy Chair for Peace contributed, as well as the International Center for the Comparative Environmental Law Program. So the IUCN, which is the biggest international organization dedicated to the environment, gathering together states and NGOs, adopted a resolution which is called to measure the effectiveness of environmental law thanks to legal indicators. And this was a huge success for the chair and for the CIDCE with the adoption of this resolution that was adopted by many different states and different NGOs all over the world. So, of course, so the method was tested and developed during the seminar of Caen of the Normandy Chair for Peace. So this method is now being developed very concretely, both within the framework of the Barcelona Convention on the Mediterranean Sea, the Convention on the wet areas, wetlands, the Ramsar Convention, and next year with the ex-CASU Convention on the extension of the participation of access to justice in South America and the Caribbean, because we have now submitted a project of resolution that will be adopted in March, next March, in Santiago de Chile during the next COP, the next COP of biodiversity. And I would like to end by saying that all of this scientific work of the development of shared development and cross-discipline development, this was made also more concrete through another development, which is that the United Nations have given the prize of United Nations for Human Rights to the CIDCE for its contribution to the development of the resolution that was adopted by the UN General Assembly in 2022 on human rights and the environment. And of course, we worked a lot and in parallel to the work done by the Normandy Chair for Peace, we worked a lot on pressuring the states so that the UN General Assembly would adopt this resolution, which for the first time recognizes the human right to the environment. And the result of this effort of scientific diplomacy and international diplomacy is that the CIDCE got awarded this prize from the United Nations on human rights. So many thanks to Émilie Gaillard and to Pascal Bunéon. I would really like to congratulate as well. And I would like to also congratulate the Vice President of the CIDCE, Ali Mekouar, who is here present with us and who has supported us thanks to its talent in all of our adventures. So this is not a closing time. This is the beginning of a new adventure that we will continue with all of the participants of the Normandy Chair for Peace. Thank you very much. C'est trop bien, genre le positif.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Donc Christophe Bastin, moi je suis la part du nombre dans cette ligne de recherche qui
Thank you very
consiste
much. My name is Christophe
qui a consisté à
Bastin.
mettre en œuvre les
And
indicateurs juridiques de façon opérationnelle.
We
aussi bien
really,
au
in
niveau
our
local
research, wanted to
qu'international.
implement these legal
On a eu la
indicators
chance
in a very operational
que cette
manner,
chaire nous serve de
both on a
tremplin
local and international
pour
level. We were very
mesurer
happy because
la
this chair
facilité l'aisance à déployer cette
was
méthode.
like a stepping
Ça aurait pu
stone
être quelque chose de
in order to
totalement abstrait,
measure
ça n'a pas été le cas.
how easy it was to develop and to implement this method. This could
Pourquoi on a fait
be
des
very
tests? On
abstract,
a
but
fait
it
des
was
tests
not the case.
avec
So why did we
des
make some
chercheurs au
tests?
Brésil, au
Well, we
Portugal, en
made some
Tunisie.
tests
On a
with
tenté d'en faire
researchers
ici à
from
la région, ça a été
Brazil,
beaucoup plus
in
compliqué, j'y reviendrai tout à
Tunisia,
l'heure.
and
On
we
a fait ces
tried to
tests pour
do
valider
some in
la
the
méthode,
region
cette
here.
conception à
We
la
made
fois
some
qui est
tests
dans
in
un
order
ouvrage
to
qui est
validate
présent
the
ici.
method, the
On
design
a conçu
method,
cette
and
méthode
there is a book that
afin
was published that we have
de
here.
prouver
We
le niveau
designed
de
this method
contribution
in order
des
to
processus de droit
prove
à
the level
l'amélioration de la
of
protection de l'environnement.
contribution of these
Et en faisant ces
legal
tests, on a cherché à
processes in
voir,
order
à évaluer
to
et à améliorer la mise en œuvre de
improve the
cette
protection
méthode
of the environment.
concrètement
So we wanted
pour la
to
rendre la plus digeste,
improve
la plus
the
accessible à tous.
implementation, to assess and to
On a
improve the
ainsi pu
implementation of the
définir des
method,
besoins en
to make it
formation
more
et
accessible to
mesurer
everyone.
l'intérêt de
We
la méthode.
were able
Intérêt
to define some
indéniable.
needs in terms
Aujourd'hui,
of
la preuve,
training.
Michel
We
Prieur
were
nous l'a
able
dit,
to measure the
des
interest
résolutions
of the method,
internationales
and now we have
traitent
the
du
evidence
besoin de
of the
développer
interest of this method. We
cette
have
mesure de
now
l'effectivité.
international resolutions that
Pascal
deal with
Bullillon disait tout à l'heure
the
en
need to
introduction
develop this measure of
l'urgence
effectiveness.
de
So
mieux agir.
Pascal Bullillon was saying earlier in his
Quand on
introduction,
s'est posé la
he
question dans
was
la
telling
chaire
us about the
de démontrer l'utilité
emergency
des
of
indicateurs juridiques,
acting
on a
better.
pris des
And when
sujets,
we actually asked
notamment
ourselves the questions
l'ODD
about the
14
usefulness, the
sur la
use of these
diacritique,
legal indicators,
pour
we looked at some subjects. For
définir quel
example,
était le renforcement
the
des capacités nécessaires
SDG
pour pouvoir
14
mesurer
on sea
l'effectivité
life to
et
define
exécuter cette
the
mesure
capacity
au sein
building
de
for
l'application
people
de
and
l'objectif de
organizations in
développement
order to
durable.
produce, execute, implement, and
Dans ce test
deploy
pour la Convention de
and roll
Barcelone,
out
on
this
était
measure on the
plus dans
effectiveness of
l'opérationnalité.
environmental law.
C'est le
And
plan
within
bleu
this
qui nous
test,
a demandé de
within the
développer des
framework of the
indicateurs
Barcelona
juridiques
Convention, this
pour
was the blue
mesurer, pour
plan.
suivre
So the aim
l'effectivité
was to
de la
develop
Convention et de ses
legal
protocoles.
indicators in order to measure
C'est-à-dire
and follow
voir
up
si
the
il
effectiveness
existait
on the
au sein
application of the Convention
des
of
comptes rendus,
Barcelona
au sein de
and of its
l'application de la
protocols.
Convention,
So the
des
idea
éléments
was to look
factuels
at
qui
whether
permettaient de dire que les
there
textes,
were
les
any
processus étaient mis en œuvre pour savoir
concrete
si la Convention était
elements which enable us to say whether
Dans
this
tous ces tests, il
Barcelona
y a eu un cadre
Convention was
général, systématique. Il y a
implemented
fallu définir
correctly.
des
So in
périmètres de
all of these
mesure.
texts,
Il y a fallu
in all of
aussi
these
élaborer des
tests, there was a
questionnaires.
general
Il a
framework.
fallu
We
graduer
had to
des
define a
réponses. Il a
scope,
fallu mettre de la
the
pondération, beaucoup
measurement
d'opérations
scope. We had to
mathématiques.
draft
Je ne vais
some
pas rentrer dans le
questionnaire.
détail, mais
We
ce qui
had
est important de
to
comprendre, c'est que
also look at the
j'étais
different
face à un monde de
responses
juristes où
and
la notion du nombre est
score the
quelque chose de
responses.
totalement
We had
inconnu
to weigh
et
the
qu'il a fallu amener
questions. We
cette
had
logique
to
des sciences, entre guillemets,
constitute a panel.
mathématiques
And
dans
we
le
had
domaine
to
du droit.
bring all this
On a eu,
logic from the mathematical
je
sciences
dirais, un retour
into the
très
legal
enrichissant. Problème de
domain.
vocabulaire,
And we got
problème
some
de
very interesting
compréhension
feedback
de ce que pouvait être
in
une méthode,
terms
de
of
sa finalité.
vocabulary.
On a
We had
rencontré
problems
grâce
with
à la
vocabulary,
chaire toutes les
understanding what is a
difficultés que
method,
pouvaient avoir les gens
what
qui
is
auraient en
its use.
charge
And thanks
de
to the
mesurer
Normandy Chair
l'effectivité.
for
Et on a
Peace,
pu
we looked
ainsi
at the
améliorer
difficulty.
la méthode. On a pu ainsi
We were
passer à
able to
l'opérationnel,
improve
créer ces questionnaires, les
this
envoyer
method.
à des
We were,
panélistes, construire des panels, que ce soit pour l'ODD, que ce soit pour le plan
we were
bleu.
able to
Au
build
niveau
up some
de
panel.
l'ODD, l'expérience était très riche tout de suite parce qu'on s'était dit, pour que ce soit
For
opérationnel,
the
on va faire très vite, on
SDG,
va
the experience
accéder directement aux
was
personnes, on
very
va leur
rich because
envoyer,
of
et sur leur bonne volonté, on va leur demander d'instruire des questionnaires. On ne va pas parler d'échecs, mais de difficultés. Difficultés pour collecter des réponses.
we
Pourquoi?
had
Parce
to
que
look
les
at
gens
questionnaires.
ne comprenaient pas forcément la méthode. Ils s'interrogeaient sur la finalité, sur la compréhension des questions. Ils s'interrogeaient sur leur capacité
the difficulty of
pouvoir
having
apporter la bonne
responses.
réponse.
We were
Vous avez des
thinking about,
frustrations des fois parce que
the
les réponses étant
capacity
encadrées
of
de pas
having the
pouvoir
right
donner
responses.
leur
Sometimes there were
perception de la
frustrations
situation.
because,
Il y a aussi la peur d'être jugé. Plein de
they could
sentiments qui
not
venaient,
really,
entre guillemets,
there was
polluer
the fear of
la
being
collecte des
judged.
informations.
So the
Et
idea
puis,
of
des
being
difficultés sur la
polluted,
qualité
the
des
collection
réponses
of,
du fait de ces problèmes.
information was polluted,
Un
and
peu
difficulties in terms of
sur le plan
responses
bleu,
to these
pour la
problems.
Convention de Barcelone,
So
riche de cet enseignement, on a
with
décidé de
regards to
procéder
the
différemment.
blue plan,
On
the
a décidé
Barcelona
d'encadrer
Convention, we decided to
les
act
enquêtes, de
differently. We
former des
decided
personnes
to
qui chargent
frame
d'enquête,
all
afin
of
qu'ils
the
puissent
all
collecter,
the
permettre de lever tous les
inquiries,
freins
the
liés
surveys, to
à
train
l'instruction des
people so
questionnaires.
that they could collect,
Ça
so
nous a
that they
permis
could
d'avoir
look
des
at
données
all the
beaucoup plus
roadblocks,
précises,
all the
beaucoup plus cohérentes, et
obstacles
de pouvoir avoir un
with regards
contrôle
to
de
this
sincérité
collection
efficace
of
sur les
data.
réponses et d'avoir
So
des résultats
this
sur le plan
enabled us
bleu
to have a
qui
much
étaient
more
beaucoup plus probants
consistent,
que ce qu'on a pu avoir sur les tests de 2014.
result, and
Je reviens sur
which
ce
was
que ça a
much
permis de
better
produire.
for the
Le
tests,
DD
for the
14,
SDG
on a eu,
14.
et là
So
je
now I would
remercie
like to come back to
Fernanda, je
SDG
remercie Madame
14.
la ministre de l'Environnement de la
So I would
Tunisie,
like to thank
je
Fernanda
remercie
and
Alexandra
the
Arago
Minister of the
de leur
Environment of
contribution, de leur
Tunisia.
travail
I would like to thank
assidu qui ont permis de
Alexandra
produire
Arago for their
cette prise au tableau
contribution
de
and
bord
their very
et qui nous ont
dedicated
montré que
work in order
finalement,
to really
on était
produce
capable
this.
avec le
They
peu
showed us that,
de
in
retour,
fact,
de
we were
pratique, de retour
able
d'expérience, de mettre en œuvre la
to have
méthode
some
et de pouvoir
feedback
mesurer, même
on our
si
experience
faut être
and
prudent, les
to
chiffres que l'on a
implement
là
this
ne
method
sont
and to be
pas des
able to
chiffres,
measure,
je veux dire,
even if we need to be
représentatifs
very
du fait du
cautious,
panel
because the
restreint.
figures we
On
have
peut
here
s'apercevoir
are
qu'on
not
n'avait que 8
always
panélistes, alors
representative,
qu'il
because
devait y en avoir une
we had a
trentaine,
very restricted
qu'on a
panel,
des
so
taux de
8
réponse qui ne font jamais
panelists
100%,
out
des gens
of
des fois n'y
about
arrivent pas à répondre à des
30.
questions,
We had
comme sur des questionnaires
response
vachement
rates
complets.
which are not
Que ce soit
always of
Portugal,
100%.
Brésil,
Not everybody
Tunisie,
responds
on
to
avait
all the
les mêmes
questions.
problèmes
And when we
de
have people
ratio.
in
Donc, des
Portugal,
problèmes
in Brazil, in
d'acceptabilité des
Tunisia,
questionnaires.
we have the same problems with the ratios
Pour
with
la
regards
Convention
to
de
the
Barcelone,
questionnaires
on a eu
and
des chiffres pareils, qui
and
étaient
the
à
fact
ce
that we
moment-là
can
beaucoup
trust the
plus
questionnaires. And
exploitables.
for
On a
the
pu
Barcelona
ainsi
conventions, we
tirer
had
des enseignements.
figures that were
On a pu proposer
easier to
des pistes
use.
d'amélioration,
We were able to
tant
draw some
sur le plan
lessons. We were able
du
to
déploiement de la méthode pour
propose some
avoir une mise en œuvre des indicateurs,
improvements
tant
in order
sur
to the
l'application de
deployment
la
of the
Convention sur
method
3
for the
pays, la
indicators
France,
and
la
the
Tunisie
application of the convention in different
et la
countries:
Turquie.
France,
Et ce qui est
Tunisia,
important, c'est qu'on
and
a
Turkey.
trouvé dans ces
And what
tests,
is really
que ce
important
soit
here
sur
is
le
that we
DD14, que
found
ce
in
soit
these tests,
sur la Convention de Barcelone,
whether
des
we're
points
looking at
d'amélioration qui soient
SDG
communs à
14
chaque
or the
pays. Tout à
Barcelona
l'heure, on
Convention,
parlait que c'était un
we
outil de
found some
mesure,
common points that
d'évaluation
were common
nationale.
to
Ça
many
reste
different
un outil
countries.
d'évaluation nationale et
We
surtout
were
pas un outil
mentioning
de
that it was a
comparaison
measurement
internationale.
tool
Pourquoi? Parce
for
que
a
moi
national
qui ne suis pas
assessment.
juriste, je l'ai très vite
It is
compris,
not
le
a
droit
tool
est
for
propre à
international
chaque pays.
comparison.
On ne peut pas
I'm not a
comparer un
legal
pays à
expert,
un
but
autre
I really
parce qu'il n'a pas
understand that
forcément les mêmes
is
composantes
really
en termes de
you
droit.
cannot
Mais ça
compare
permet de voir qu'ils
law
peuvent rencontrer
of
les
different
mêmes
countries.
problèmes
The law is very
quand
specific
il
to
s'agit de
one
traduire du
particular
droit
country,
international dans leur droit national.
but it is a
Les
way
problèmes de traduction,
when we're
de
looking
mise en
at
œuvre
international
d'une
law.
d'exigence de droit international dans leur droit national. Et ça,
Voilà.
la mesure de l'effectivité nous a permis de mettre ça en avant. Je voudrais ouvrir une parenthèse à
It
ce
was a
niveau-là,
way
très
to
importante.
promote this, to talk
Les
about this. So
indicateurs
I would like
juridiques,
to just
outre le fait
mention
qu'on est dans
this.
la mesure de la
So the
bonne
legal
application,
indicators,
c'est vraiment,
other than
j'ai failli
the
évoquer
fact
tout à
that
l'heure,
we're looking at
un outil, un
implementation,
outil
but
pilier de la non-régression.
this
Elle
is
permet
a
de voir
tool, this is a
et de comprendre
central tool,
facilement où sont
an
les
essential
difficultés de
tool.
mise en œuvre
It
du droit dans
enables
un pays.
us to see
Ou,
where are the
je dirais,
difficulties
des fois,
in
non
terms of
pas
the
les textes, mais
implementation
la
of the
culture
law in a
ne
particular
permet pas
country.
forcément
Sometimes we
de
compare the text, and sometimes the
faciliter
culture
la mise en œuvre
does not enable
du
us
droit.
to
Et les outils pour ça,
facilitate
les
the
indicateurs juridiques qui ne
implementation
mesurent
of the
que
law,
le processus de
and
mise en œuvre de l'application,
legal
permet de
indicators
mesurer
only
où sont les
measure
difficultés qu'ont les gens à
this
répondre sur
implementation,
des
and it
critères
is a
juridiques.
way to
Critères
measure
juridiques
where the
qui
obstacles and the
sont, je dirais,
difficulties are.
importants
So the
à mesurer.
legal criteria
J'y reviendrai un petit
that
peu plus
are
tard. Je crois que
important
Leïla
to measure. I would like to come back on this later. I think Leila is online. I think Mrs. Ministre is here. And Leila, you have the floor.
Il n'y a pas de problème, je cède la place dès qu'elle est là. Voilà. Donc, pour reprendre cette parenthèse, on a pu constater qu'il y avait un grand intérêt de mesurer l'effectivité.
So we were able to see that there was a huge interest in measuring the effectiveness. This was said before, so the legal conventions, international conventions, with a requirement made on this, but the real problems in terms of the implementation, we made some problems within the region, with the teams of the CESER, cultural difficulties, a lack of tool, lack of tools upstream. So, Mrs. Chikahoui, you have the floor.
Ah oui, son projet. Donc, Madame la Ministre de l'Environnement.
Oh, with regards to the project, so Madam Minister of the Environment, good morning. She will present to us the test made for SDG 14 in Tunisia. Thank you very much to everyone. Thank you, dear Christopher, for giving me the floor. I had sent a small series of slides. I don't know if I can show them, if I can share them with you. Yes, you can do that. Yes, I'm looking for that in my screen. So, dear Leila, yes, you can present, you can share your slides online. Yes, so sharing the screen, right? Okay, I'm managing, even if technology is not always easy to handle, but now I'm sharing my screen. So, is that okay? Yes, thank you. I would like to say good morning to everyone. I would like to thank Michel PRIEUR. I would like to thank Christophe for his patience with me, and of course, Émilie, for all that she did during the past few years that went by very, very fast. And thank you for inviting me. I know my time is short. There are lots of participants and everybody wants to say something, but I want to bring my own testimony, my own account, and bring my contribution, my small contribution to this project, which was very interesting. So first of all, the discovery of what the legal indicators were. And this is something that related to the Barcelona Convention, 2010. So my participation, Michel, I was discovering it, Michel mentioned this. He said, oh, it's very easy. It's nothing at all. It's a very simple thing. And he convinced me to participate in it. And I was very troubled at the time because at the time I had been teaching for different years, and I thought that I had some good experience in that field, and I thought it would be very easy indeed. And then Michel started to send me some questionnaires one by one, and of course the difficulties started little by little, started to emerge little by little, and this actually forced me to review, to change and rethink all of my legal approach, to rethink all of the implementation, because, of course, we kind of learn about the methodology and learn about automatic processes, we learn about what's happening everywhere in the world and comparative law, etc. But we always stay within a very theoretical knowledge of the law, and the confrontation with legal indicators was a real change, because I had to ask myself, you know, what could be applied in practice? You know, do the stakeholders that are supposed to apply this, do they know this law? And of course, it would have been a huge change, a huge upheaval in my brain. And there was all the master's team, the masters of environmental law, all the legal teams and all the students. And we asked ourselves these questions together. We were asking ourselves the question of what is the usefulness of a law? What is the use? What is a rule for? What is and when you have a rule, when you don't have the minimum conditions for implementing this rule, and if the formulation does not respond to these objectives of these essential criteria, if there is no implementation mechanism, if there is no follow-up tool in order to measure its effectiveness and its control and all the subsequent criteria. And of course, the legal indicators are very relevant because, and I know Michel had talked to me about it when we were online, and he told me that during the COVID years, we didn't really implement, legal rules, but everything went. I mean, nature was able to get better. So, with regards to Barcelona Convention, then the presentation of the preliminary results of the tests for each country in Cameroon 2018. So I discovered all the mathematical aspects behind this with my colleagues and with Christophe. I would like to thank him again and again for all his patience. I had some IT problems. I could not read some of the slides. I was not able to open Excel documents. And little by little, I discovered the relevance of what we were doing from with regards to the different schemes, the different frameworks, and we were able to discover on site what our small responses could produce in spite of the difficulties, the different weather problems and weather obstacles there were. So following that, the team made me a part of this work conducted by the Normandy Chair for Peace, and then the association was stronger, and I was invited to collaborate to the drafting of the questionnaires and the questions that need to be raised, as well as the presentation, the choice of the criteria. And we were able to go deeper into this approach, and we were able to identify the topics, to elaborate on the questions, and to identify a panel of people that were able to respond in a relevant way, because we had to select some people who were representative of public institutions, of civil society, from the legal domain and the justice, and from the world of experts as well. So all of this took quite a lot of time with very significant exchanges. I learned a lot from these exchanges. There were also some difficulties, and I still meet with some difficulties because I was not able to go deeper into the mathematical aspects. And of course, the choice of the panel is very important as well. in order to identify this. This is not very easy. And the construction of the questionnaire depends on the ability of the people who were selected in order to respond to these questionnaires. So also there were some methodological difficulties because there were all of these aspects that are difficult for me today still. And this is where the transdisciplinary aspect comes into play, because I was convinced of it from a personal point of view, of the importance of the method and the relevance of this method in order to assess a rule of law, you know, because we were able to go deeper into that for Tunisia. To protect the applicability of the rule. We saw the articulation between the international law and internal law, because of course this is part of the protection of internal law, forestry law. This also involves the intervention of several players, several stakeholders, several stakeholders and players. So with regards to environmental law, international law, etc. This is very important because we go from something which is real, protecting the environment, protecting oceans, and then we look at all of these aspects in a very global way. So the idea is to assess the indicators, to be able to review, to improve these methods. And this leads the researcher to question their own knowledge of the law and to also review their approach of law. And then with some hindsight with regards to the project of the Environment Code in environmental law in Tunisia. So I would like to thank all of the people who participated in that project, so that we could integrate these legal indicators in the internal law, in the project of environmental code. So we had planned the ability to have access to use these legal indicators in order to measure the effectiveness of the implementation of this policy, environmental policy. So I think the question is really important, and it would be a good thing to look at it more in detail. This would be my last proposal for this approach, for the legal so that the legal indicators are taught in the law schools, so that students are made to be familiar with this from an early stage, and so that we could do this exercise from an early stage with these legal exercises, legal tests. So thank you very much for enabling me to present my testimony. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Minister. Thank you very much for the honor of showing us what scientific diplomacy is all about. All of the work that was done within this chair had a very concrete application, for example, here with the environmental code in Tunisia, and we will see later with regards to Niger. But, you know, with the masters, with regards to legal transitions, Sciences Po Rennes, with the campus where these legal indicators are taught. So Christophe Bastin will be able to finish his presentation, and then we will give the floor to other international teams. Thank you very much, Madam Minister, because we saw the difficulties in terms of the implementation of this method. of course, we drew a lot of lessons from this, a lot of methodological lessons. For example, the lack of a transdisciplinary approach. Of course, there are a lot of different aspects, not just law, but methodology, how to define a panel, what are the profiles of stakeholders in order to implement a law. So, you know, the need to train legal experts in this approach. There are things that were not mentioned enough, but you know, we thought that you know, having you know, drafting a questionnaire took time, and it was necessary to remove the complexity in the questionnaires. And of course, we're not always what somebody can understand, what a legal expert can understand is not necessarily understood by an engineer. So we have to make it understandable for everyone, the frustration of not being able to express oneself freely, the frustration of not being able to respond to a particular question, all of these different problems. So the conclusion for this research work, there are three different points that are very important. For example, first of all, a concise and understandable questionnaire, so that we have a reliable instruction, a precise instruction. So tomorrow, if you have to call upon an expert, for example. The second point is to frame the panelists during the instruction of the questionnaire in order to be able to use this data. The third point is to enlarge the group, enlarge the work into an expert group to other scientific profiles. So once we make up these references, then I don't know if we will be able to talk more about it. These are the perspectives. I would like to give the floor to... So before I finish, we have published a great book available in 3 languages. Michel PRIEUR and myself, we are the co-authors of this publication. This is an open source publication. Please take it, take a copy of it. It is also available online, and we will publish it on the Normandy Chair for Peace's website. You will see examples of questionnaires, how we can look at the different methodological steps and approaches. Please come back to us. Please come and talk to us if you have any questions. I would like to thank the CNRS, the French Center for Scientific Research, as well as the Normandy region, for helping us to really make it happen. And I would like to now invite Alexandra ARAGÁO, who also served as a Minister for the Environment, and she will talk to us about the ODD SDG 14 and the legal indicators. Can I just say something for 1 second? I saw among the participants, I saw that Elie Mécoire is with us. I would like to thank him for his participation to the project of the Environmental Code. Thank you very much, Ali. I hope you will be able to connect online later. And also Yacouba, if he's here, thank you very much. Thank you.
Faculty of Law of the University of Coimbra in Portugal. Since 2020, my research center, the Legal Institute, has cooperated with the Chaire Normandie pour la Paix in the project called Indigène, Legal Indicators for Environmental Law Effectiveness. Our role has been to help demonstrate the usefulness and the scientifically soundness of the methodology developed for molding and shaping legal indicators for measuring the effectivity of environmental law. To do this, we have adapted to Portuguese law and Portuguese legal context the surveys that have been applied in France. These surveys include 6 families of indicators, legal indicators of effectivity of environmental law. And we have applied it to a nature conservation area called Paul-Derzila, which is a wetlands. Very important because it is a Ramsar site and also a Natura 2000 site, and it is nearby to our university. We have interviewed different legal actors applying environmental law in the Portuguese context. Considering their responses to our questionnaire, we have provided feedback for the colleagues, experts, coordinated by Professor Michel PRIEUR, who are working with the data that is being produced in the different countries involved in this research project called Indigène. Our first conclusions are very promising because we realized that all the stakeholders consider that having a tool to measure the effectiveness of environmental law is very, very important. They really understood that it is not possible to measure the effectivity of environmental law using external criteria that depend on social contexts, that depend on economic conditions, that depend on the motivation of the different actors. So we understood that according to all these stakeholders, public and private stakeholders that we have contacted for the purpose of this project, it is important, very important, to have this measurement tool which allows to measure the effectiveness of the law itself without the influence of the context, so as to adapt future norms and future regulations to the best practice of environmental law for sustainability. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, professeur Alexandra ARAGÁO, qui est également directrice de thèse de
Thank you so
Daniele
much to Professor
GALVAO, qui a été une
Alexandra
étudiante que nous avons eu
ARAGÁO.
le plaisir
She
d'accueillir
is
plusieurs mois au
also
sein du Centre d'excellence Normandie pour la
she
paix,
has also had a
avec
student we had
le
here
programme
in our
Erasmus+,
Center of
donc
Excellence,
Daniele
and
nous
the
a préparé
program
une
Erasmus
vidéo
Plus
de
allowed us
remerciement
to
pour sa
share with you
participation en
this
ligne
video
indicateur
in
juridique.
order
Je
to,
lui cède la
as an
parole.
acknowledgement for this very specific topic. So you have the floor.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Daniele GALVAO. I am a doctoral candidate in law at the University of Coimbra, advised by Professor Alexandra ARAGÁO, and the subject of my thesis is Indicators for the Effectivity of Environmental Law and the Protection of Environmentally Displaced People. So last year, I did a doctoral internship at the Normandy Chair for Peace under the Erasmus Plus program from February to June. To learn more about the Legal Indicators project led by Professor Michel PRIEUR and Professor Christophe Bastin. And I was asked to talk about my experience during my 4-month research stay at NCP. So as I have already had the opportunity to externalize to some of you and in my final internship report, it was a very productive period from the point of view of networking and getting to know better this line of research. I had the opportunity to work directly with Professor Michel. I attend 2 lectures he gave at Sciences Po and also follow the process of drafting the questionnaire for SDG 11. And I also supported Professor Michel in his work to circulate the project for an international convention on pandemics, and also to circulate copies of the Legal Indicators book. And a very important support that the Normandy Chair for Peace gave me was the trip to New York for the Peace with Nature Week, where I had the opportunity to meet and participate in debates with very distinguished professors and researchers. such as the chair leader, Attorney Tonio Poça, and also the chairman emeritus, Professor Nicholas Robinson. I also participate in a conference at the University of Coimbra on legal innovation and eco-innovation for sustainability. I organized a webinar on the duty of non-regression on the environment in Brazil and the right of future generations. And I also worked on the translation of the book on legal indicators into Portuguese with the support of my colleagues Renata Alves from the University of Coimbra and Aloma Barros from the Federal University of Mato Grosso, which unfortunately did not make it to publication because it was still pending a final review and final adjustments. So in case you are still interested in publishing the translation, I just would like to point out that this first draft is ready. And finally, even after the end of my Erasmus period, I went back to Caen to help with the organization and logistical support of the summer university. And I think that those are the main points I would like to share with you. And once again, thank you very much for having me. And I wish you all the best.
Merci beaucoup, Daniele. Donc, que nous avons accueilli au sein de la chaire, que nous avons
Thank you so much, Daniela, and it was such a great pleasure to have you with us and to, go with us to the United States. And this is incredible because you have also translated the Portuguese version. This is really awesome. Other team now, we've seen the Tunisia international team with the legal indicators with this starting ceremony, but also the Portugal team. And now we have the third team with Michel PRIEUR and Christophe Bastin teams. This team is based in Brazil, in Florianopolis, in the law university, and this is one of the most important universities and one of the, of course, most important in Brazil, but not only. So we have with us the University of Santa Fe, Florianopolis, and our university has been, working together in a partnership. So Fernanda Capdeville, you have the floor. Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank you for having me participating to this incredible last event and also to see what has been done for the indicators and in Brazil. Namely, I would like to congratulate and really greet Emily Gaillard for her incredible work and also Michel Prieur for all his job. I am Fernanda Capdeville, and I would like to introduce to you our team here in Santa Catarina and the Brazil team for the indigenous team. So we have been working together in the Federal University in Santa Catarina and the group connected to international law, and together with Professor Cristiano DERANI, and we have been working on political ecology in our economies together with several old colleagues. We've been creating a team of 9 researchers to develop the projects in Brazil. We've been working in the years 2020, 2021, and 22 with 3 main topics, on 3 main topics. So first, we've been participating to the groups, having French and international participants in order to see what is possible in our framework, together with, of course, the Brazilian aspect. So we've been participating to several meetings And also we were able to prepare the project with a survey and also notes and, explaining facts in order to get deeper in our researches. So we had a lot of occasions to work together. Then we also worked on the preparation of the two main exercises of these indicators in Brazil, namely the topics connected to the years 2020. So that was namely the objective, Sustainable Development Goals number 14, connected to oceans. And we had a very, very interesting questionnaire for France. We did translate it also for local modalities for the implementation of these legal texts. So we've been also focusing on ecological stations. It is a protected area, federal area, protected here in Brazil for research and protection. And it is in Florianopolis, the same city where we have the headquarters of our University of Santa Catarina. So for the implementation of these two surveys or projects, we have followed a few steps. First, the preparation of documents for Brazil with the adaptation, translation of surveys and so on, and, explanations. And also the very specific definition of this perimeter of Brazilian law, which is applicable to all these topics of protected areas and protection of oceans and coasts. So we've been working on methods and details and how to elaborate on these surveys and to give answers. So we've been working on a panel, and we have chosen very specific people to answer those surveys about these two main topics. So this panel was composed by researchers, experts, lawyers, and procurators, and so on. So public organizations, but also environmental organizations, and so on, together with the members of the civil society. So they all work together in that framework, and they were orientated towards all these processes in order to give answers to those questionnaires or surveys. And the idea was to have a feedback on their vision and how they would face, these aspects, and also which were the, difficulties and so on. So after that questionnaire, we've been working on the treatment of data processing, analyzed and also sent to the technical team in France in order to validate these results. And we've also went through the third step, which is an analysis, deeper analysis, let's say, of those results in order to discuss and also share them with the central team of our management team and also the other countries who participated to that project. And it is, also an exchange and experiences and how to elaborate future projects and how to improve also these methods. We are also very much keen on the diffusion of these results around the participation of scientific events, which take place in France, but also Brazil. So our university has organized in partnership with the Chair Normandie for Peace, the International of Comparative Law. It is a very specific webinar on juridical or legal indicators in the framework of a first Franco-Brazilian meeting on sustainable sustainable development. So this event was very much important, and we had the opportunity to evaluate the results of this first project. So in order to see what has been done in that on those topics in these countries, but also we were very much keen on discussing the future development of new exercises, new projects for the future. So let's say that globally, we were able to say that this experience is extremely positive and allowed us to get deeper in, on these specific topics of rights, law, juridical, legal indicators, but also how to measure these indicators. So that was very much important to get deeper in the knowledge of that methodology to understand better how it works and how to reproduce it in the future in also in other contexts here in Brazil. So we were also able to say that it was an intense experience about exchange, group work, and so on. So we were very happy to validate this method and also propose few adjustments about the details, which are extremely useful on a scientific point of view. We also wanted to confirm the opportunity to reproduce this exercise and methodology in other contexts, as said. So it could be political, geographical, and also other fields. So we really saw the opportunity and the importance to see those indicators and identifying very, maybe, aspects to improve in order to reinforce political aspects and also to work on those two topics, which are extremely important for our study. So to conclude, indicators allow us to see the progresses, but also the obstacles, the difficulties, the potential, the points which shall be improved, and the whole context connected to the juridical framework, but also decision-making processes and policies connected to the environment. So we have very, very reliable data, which are, let's say, available every time.
être produits aussi de manière moins coûteuse que les indicateurs classiques, aussi de manière plus simplifiée et générer des résultats pertinents
We also
pour
wanted
éclairer les
to
politiques environnementales.
work on
Je voudrais
few
alors, au nom
on
de l'équipe
these new
brésilienne du
results.
projet,
So on
exprimer notre
behalf of
remerciement à la
our
Chaire
team,
Normandie
I
pour
would
la
like
paix et
to
toute son équipe, à
greet
toute
the
l'équipe aussi du projet
Normandy
Indigé
Chair
pour
for Peace and the
l'opportunité
whole
d'avoir
team,
participé à
and
cette
also the
importante initiative de développement
indigenous
des innovations
project for
juridiques
the
au
participation of
profit
this
du droit de
great
l'environnement
project
et des
on,
générations futures.
legal improvement and legal
Merci
framework in order
infiniment,
to
chers
improve
collègues.
future
Quel
generations.
plaisir de voir
Thank you so
tous ces
much,
collègues
dear
en ligne et
colleague.
de pouvoir
It
les
was such a
convier à
great
cet
pleasure
événement
to
final.
have
C'est
all
dire
these
l'immensité du
colleagues
travail
together
qui a été
online
fait dans le cadre de cette
in
ligne de
live.
recherche, que
And,
ce soit une recherche
this
de
is
fond,
also the
une recherche de
result of an
terrain, une recherche
incredible work
exploratoire, parce que quelque part, c'est
globally
un
on the
laboratoire
field
juridique.
and how to
Et quelle
explore new
consécration que cette
opportunities
implication de cet
and
article dans le Code
which
de l'environnement tunisien.
which
Bravo,
are
Michel
also
Prieur.
the
Je pense que le moment est venu peut-être de
continuities.
faire un
So thank
petit
you, Michel
overview,
Prieur.
une
I
petite vision
think
globale,
now we
peut-être ouvrir
shall
des perspectives
make a
d'avenir.
short
Et ensuite, nous
overview
montrerons
and
comment
see the
tout un
future
chacun peut
perspectives
chercher
so that
des
we can
informations
define the
sur le site
future
internet.
and
Et je fais
how
cette
in the
présentation.
future,
Professeur,
people can go and search information. So Professor, you have the floor.
Alors, merci aux présentations qui viennent d'être
Thank you.
faites
First, to all
par
the participants on
les
this
acteurs
great
directs de cette
presentation
recherche, puisque
done by
toutes
these
les
direct actors of
personnes qui
this
sont
research,
intervenues
because, as
faisaient
said, we
partie
have all the
du
people
groupe de travail
participating
qui a été mis en
here
place en
were part of
2019
that
dans le cadre de
working
la chaire
group
Normandie pour la
created
paix.
in
Et on
2019
voit bien
in this
que
framework of the Normandy Chair
il ne
for Peace.
s'agit
And
pas en
we can
l'espèce
clearly
d'une
see that
recherche théorique ou
it's
abstraite,
not an abstract or theoretical research, but really an operational research, which means that it is connected to results which are tangible. So, of course, the Minister of the Environment in Tunisia, I mean, it was a privilege for us to have her with us because she is so much busy and she found a few minutes to be with us and she was able to really, show us what are the results. And these research is starting here in Caen, Article 74 of the environmental law, juridical law in Tunisia. That will be the first national document to be able to integrate these legal indicators. Of course, this code is not yet approved officially by the parliament and the government. It is actually, a first step at a scientific development, but it has been shown to the government and to the President of the Republic, and it shall be approved in the future months. So I would like really to insist on Article 74 connected to the legal documents in Tunisia. And Professor Gaillard as well highlighted another implementation in the framework of trainings through the Master for Future Generation here in Sciences Po, not here, but in Sciences Po Rennes, where we have lessons also here in Caen to, start and create new tools for students who work on legal indicators. So these two documents, the legal documents in Tunisia and the lessons in Sciences Po Rennes make part of that global program connected to the resolution of EUCN, which is 050, because in the conclusions of these resolution, we have recommendations done clearly at the Congress, the World Congress, EUCN, have 4 parts. First one, to ask to the World Commission of the Environmental Law, which of course we make part, and to his members to develop these experiences and also trainings. So in fact, we already developed experiences and trainings and will continue to do so. Second part, second request, let's say, which has been done by the resolution of EUCN, is to ask to the UN system to add indicators, legal indicators, to reach the Sustainable Development Goals. Well, this is not done yet, but that will be one of the priorities of CDCE and Sciences Po Rennes and other partners to push the Statistic Commission of the UN to introduce these legal indicators in SDGs. So this is really, the work to be done. Of course, we've already started. We need to continue to work on that, to dwell on that. This is extremely complex, by the way. You need to convince the General Assembly of the UN and the Statistics Commission of the UN to get open to the law and not only to statistics. Third request from this resolution is to ask to partners and regional conventions and universal convention on the environment to introduce new indicators on these follow-up processes for the application of the international law. Well, this started. It has already started with the Barcelona Convention, when in 2019 they adopted and we adopted a resolution about these, indicators for the Barcelona Convention. It is a regional convention, but we need to, let's say, open it to universal convention, Ramsar. It has already started, thanks to Burkina Faso, but we also had some issues there. As you know, we have some, difficulties to solve. But anyways, we'll relaunch Yacouba Salgado from Burkina Faso. So we'll come back to him to, with this new regime in Burkina Faso to put pressure in order to introduce it to the next COP in Ramsar. So we have a lot of hopes anyways, and also in the short term, because we will have these opportunities thanks to the Escazú Convention for South America. We are working to have the adoption at the Conference of Parties and Escazú Conference in March, a new resolution about these legal indicators. And fourth point, fourth request from the 050 resolution from UCN, we would like to to push on international organizations and governments in order to introduce in their reports on the state of the environment some specific legal indicators. So you see, this is more an administrative work with the secretariats of the organization in order to modify their model of reports and how states should make their reports in order to have a specific model and to have, the opportunity to have the request to introduce not only the scientific indicators, which are already of course, explained in all these international conventions, but namely to have it very clearly the opportunity to see the legal indicators. So, as a consequence, these four elements of the Marseille conference, these four elements are still in progress, of course, and to conclude, I would like to highlight a last point. The International Center for the Comparative Law for the Environment, as a member of UCN and as main player as for the Normandie pour la paix, well, the CDCE has been invited by UCN to make a report on the implementation of this 050 resolution, the legal indicators, and as a consequence, about 3 weeks ago, I had to make a report for UCN to highlight how we implemented this 050 resolution. So this report is actually making a point of the application of this resolution of 2020 from 2020 to 2023. So I sent it to UCN, and now I think it's on their website, and we'll be able to put it on our website, Share Normandie for Peace. And I discovered that since 2020 we've been making 22 events for the implementation of this resolution. Imagine that. So, of course, it was about training, about legal indicators, but also experiences. Second topic, promotion, considering SDGs. And third topic, indicators as for international conventions and how they're used. So let's say all these three topics have been producing 22 events for the implementation of the legal indicators implementation. So we've started our work. We're just continuing to do it, and we're really thankful to you, Emily. Thank you so much again.
Crédit, merci à toi Michel, merci, mais bravo au professeur Michel Prieur. Ce que vous ne savez pas, c'est
Thank you so much.
Il œuvre, il fait aussi de la diplomatie.
Michel Prieur, he's also been able to act as a diplomat with all the delegations, and he was able to put in the project this resolution connected to legal indicators. Thank you. Yes. One more point. Last example. Yes, you have the floor.
Le dernier
Please.
exemple de diplomatie scientifique,
Yeah,
c'est à
last
l'occasion
example of
de la
scientific
conférence
development,
intergouvernementale
it's during the
auquel
occasion of the
Catarina a participé
intergovernmental
à l'UNESCO à Paris
conference
au mois de mai,
at the
négociation
UNESCO in
de la
Paris
Convention
last May.
sur les plastiques et
These
les déchets
negotiations
plastiques,
of the Convention on
convention portée
Plastics and
par le Programme des
Plastic
Nations Unies pour
Wastes.
l'environnement. Et à
Now, it
l'occasion
was
de cette
connected to the
négociation
UN Program
sur la
for the
Convention
Environment,
plastique,
and in that
il se
occasion,
trouve que
during
le
the
délégué
negotiations on the
officiel
plastics
du gouvernement du
negotiations, the
Gabon,
official delegate
qui est représenté
of
par
the
conséquent
Gabon
l'État du Gabon,
government
dans sa
representing
présentation,
the, of course,
a mentionné
Gabon state.
la demande
Well, in
du
his
Gabon
presentation,
par
he
d'autres
actually
États
mentioned the request from
d'introduire dans la
Gabon and
Convention
other
sur les
states
plastiques
to
le principe
introduce
de non-régression.
in the Plastics Convention the
Et donc, le
principle of
délégué du
non-regression.
Gabon a officiellement
So
demandé
the
l'introduction
delegate
du principe de
officially
non-régression
asked
dans la
for
Convention
the
sur les plastiques.
introduction of this
Alors,
principle
il
of
se trouve
non-regression
que ce
in the
principe a
framework of
été
that
porté
convention
notamment par le
on
CESE,
plastics. So of
au
course its
niveau du droit
principle has
international,
been
et
has been of course
que le
highlighted
délégué
by
du
the
Gabon, qui était en
CDCE
relation avec le
and
CEDCE
the
et
delegate
avec
from
la formation universitaire du
Gabon,
droit international
together with
de
the
l'Université de Limoges,
training,
que le délégué du
international
Gabon a utilisé
law
notre
from the University
argumentaire
of Limoges,
dans le
the
cadre de la
delegate
négociation officielle.
used
Donc
our
voilà une
argument
illustration
in
concrète.
that
Alors, comme vous le
official
savez,
negotiations. So
malheureusement,
this is a
le Gabon vient
concrete
d'avoir
case.
un coup d'État,
Well,
mais j'espère que
unfortunately,
le
Gabon has
délégué du
just
Gabon
had
n'a
a
pas
coup
sauté avec le coup
d'etat,
d'État.
but I
Merci.
hope the delegate has not, I mean, is still, you know, there. Thank you so much.
Futurs étudiants, donc ils sont un peu avec
Right, in
l'habitude du
the room
programme
we
depuis
have
des
also
années.
future
J'en suis bien
students,
ravie.
which
Merci
of
pour
course are
tout ce
passionate
partage,
by our
Michel
program.
Prieur.
So
Donc je
thank you
rappelle,
so much for
nous allons
sharing
montrer à
such
l'écran
a
le site
great
internet.
program.
J'en profite
Now
pour
we'll
remercier le
see here
webmaster
on the screen
qui a
our
travaillé
website.
là-dessus,
I would like to
Xavier
thank the
Bader,
webmaster, by the
qui
way,
sera
who
avec nous
has
ce
been
midi,
working on that,
qui a
Xavier Bader,
magnifiquement
who will be
organisé
with
le
us
site
at
internet. Donc,
lunch.
comme vous pouvez
He
le voir
has made
à
this
l'écran,
incredible
vous avez
website.
une
See
ligne
that?
qui
It's
décrit,
really
qui
awesome. We have
une
a
page
very
descriptif
specific
du
line
programme indicateur
describing
juridique
the
et
objective
vous
of the
avez
program,
accès en tapant
and
notamment sur la barre
also
de
you
recherche
have the
toutes
opportunity
les
to
vidéos
access
qui
it
sont relatives.
through
Donc bien
the
sûr, vous avez les
platform,
réunions en
all the
présentiel, il y a le Covid,
videos
donc nous avons
connected to our
basculé avec des
project. Of
réunions
course,
en
we had
distanciel. Il faut dire que tout ce
online, but
travail de
not
terrain
only, we also
en
had
Covid n'était
in-presence
pas
meetings.
évident.
So it
Et
has
pourtant,
been
vous
a
voyez tout le
great
travail qui a été
work
réalisé.
during the
Donc c'est
COVID
la première
period of
équipe qui a été mise
time.
en
But
place.
we've been
Merci
working
infiniment,
so
Michel, parce
much.
que tu as été
This is the
extrêmement
first team.
réactif lorsque
Look at
cette chaîne
that.
d'excellence a
Thank you
été
so
montée.
much.
Une très grande équipe, que
By
ce
the
soit
way,
en
Michel,
France, en
for,
Tunisie, au Portugal,
interacting
à Florianopolis.
so quickly,
Les
so fastly
différents
in
événements qui sont
Florianopolis,
rattachés
but also in
à
Portugal.
la ligne
And also
indicateur
here, you
juridique.
can
On
see
peut
all the
remontrer
events
parce que
connected
ces
to
liens
our
se font
legal
par rapport à
indicators.
d'autres choses.
And look at
Sur,
that,
quelque
of
part,
course,
sur
all
le site
the
internet,
articles
vous avez
published
accès à ces
as well.
ouvrages que je vous présente,
And
donc,
you
qui
will
sont
also have
disponibles
the
en,
access to
comment dire,
all
hard copy,
these,
c'est-à-dire en papier et encre, en anglais,
I mean,
en
these
français
hard copies,
et en
documents in
espagnol.
English,
Donc à la
French,
collection Cher Normandie
and
pour la paix
in
qui a d'ailleurs été
Spanish.
ouvert aux
So,
collections
Cher
et
Normandie
éditions
pour la
Peter
paix
Lang.
collection. Look
Et ils
at
sont
this book, Peter
téléchargeables
Lang
dans ces trois versions
edition. You
gratuitement
can
qui sont
download them on
proposées en
these
open
3
source sur
versions,
le
which
site
are
internet de la
free.
chaire d'excellence
It is an open
Normandie
source
pour la
on
paix.
our
Donc
internet
j'attendrai qu'on me fasse
website.
signe avec un
So
écran si
this
jamais il y a
is
des
really, really
questions-réponses,
great.
des questions qui sont formulées en
If you
ligne.
have
Quoi
any
qu'il en soit, les
questions
perspectives, le
here,
bilan a été fait, les
please
perspectives ont
do
été
not
dressées.
hesitate.
On
Anyways,
voit que
the
c'est extrêmement
perspectives
stimulant,
and the,
que c'est du
you
droit
know,
concret.
overall
J'ajouterai qu'à
perspective
l'occasion du
has
sommet
been
de
seen.
l'avenir des
It
Nations
is
Unies qui va se
extremely
tenir l'année
positive.
prochaine,
And also
à la
for
demande du
the
secrétaire
future
général des
summit
Nations Unies, il va y avoir
next
une
year,
réflexion de
on
fond
request from
sur la
the
gouvernance
General
et
Secretary
sur la mise en
of the
effectivité
UN,
des
will have
objectifs du
a
développement durable
governance
et
and
que, bien
effectiveness
évidemment, nous
of
ferons parvenir
sustainable development
l'intégralité des
goals
communications de
and
Cher Normandie
sustainability. And
aux
of course,
délégués
we'll
et
be
à l'ONU,
publishing a
sachant que
lot
c'est une
in that
proposition
framework.
très concrète
And
pour le sommet de
this is
l'avenir
a very,
qui en
very
a avec
concrete
l'expérimentation
proposal
de
for
terrain.
the
Donc on me fait pas signe par
future
rapport à des
summit.
questions-réponses. Ce que je propose, c'est de
Right, so I
clôturer sur
don't
cette
think
première
there are
session
any
de bilan.
questions online. I
Je
would
vous
like to now
propose
conclude our
de faire
first session of the morning, I would like to let's make a coffee break. We'll be back at 11:10 because our next session, which is connected to the indigenous people, is also extremely rich, and we'll have the opportunity to come back as soon as possible. See you into 15 minutes. Thank you so much.